Nobody wants to use digital property for transactions. They need a currency. And I was like, but Michael, the currencies are now all smart contract based currently on Ethereum. And, we didn't really go there, but he definitely acknowledged the fact that we need something like that. Clearly, he's got a lot of Bitcoin that he could be earning yield on. He also told me, Brian, I like Bitcoin because it has low aspirations. And I like the fact that he's understanding that probably flies under the regulation radar. And I know we'll talk about that later with you. So I understand what he wants and needs, but I feel like he's the guy that can stand between potentially the maximalists and what you guys are doing. Thoughts on that? Or maybe you know something I don't.
No, I think absolutely right. Like for example, the idea of a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin is something a lot of Bitcoiners would get behind. And this is literally it. It's a little bit like the future is already here. It's just not widely distributed yet. There's a protocol called Arcadico, where you can literally have a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, and people are already minting it, and it's amazing, right? It's a little bit like we need to basically tell more people. And I'm a computer scientist, right? Like I feel like we need more people who are good at marketing, good at messaging, like simplifying like someone like Pomp. Like Pomp is a big fan of Stacks. So he's like hosted me many times. Someone like that, or Dan Held is another example. He's again, a friend of the project who can simplify the technology that we have built and take it to the masses of Bitcoin. I think that's a very logical next step, and I'm very confident that it's just going to happen. With that, like I feel like we want to get into a little bit of the insides of Stacks,
Yeah.
like what exactly it is and how it works. And the way to think about that is that Bitcoin is valuable because it's immutable. It doesn't change, right? And that is what a lot of Bitcoiners would say, that, hey, look, Ethereum keeps changing. I can't trust it. I don't know what the monetary policy is going to be. I don't know what the consensus algorithm is going to be like in 2 years, 3 years, and so on. So I agree. Like Bitcoin is durable, right? Like we know that it's going to be this thing like 20 years from now, 50 years from now, and so on. And I feel more secure keeping my money as Bitcoin because I know I can come back 10 years from now, or my kids can come back later down the road and Bitcoin will still be Bitcoin. But at the same time, it is a limitation because Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts. So that is the problem that we effectively solved, right? And it is technically a much harder problem to solve because it's easier for me to go off and build a separate new blockchain because then I'm in control of everything. I can just build a new system however I want to build it. But we wanted to work with Bitcoin. So you have to interoperate with Bitcoin. You basically have to almost like extend Bitcoin without changing it, which is very technically hard. So what we ended up building, Stacks, is a programming layer for Bitcoin. So it is separate. It's a separate layer. The way to compare this with Ethereum is Ethereum is a single layer solution, even though now they are working on L2s for scalability. On the Bitcoin side, Bitcoin plus Stacks is a two-layer solution, which for people who are familiar with Lightning, they would instantly get it, right? Bitcoin is the base layer and Lightning is the faster payments. So similarly, Stacks is basically the programming layer where you can get faster smart contracts and then they settle on Bitcoin. And because the Stacks layer is independent, we can have fully expressive smart contracts there. And these contracts can respond to Bitcoin transactions, meaning that you can build Bitcoin applications where, let's say, I'm doing a Bitcoin transaction to do lending, and the collateral is living in a smart contract on the Stacks layer, right? So it's actually enabling native Bitcoin applications because I could just do a native Bitcoin transaction and trade into some asset, like do a native swap, right? Again, like instead of going through Binance or some other centralized exchange, I can directly trade into a stable coin just by doing a Bitcoin transaction, which is huge. Like most people don't realize that this can be done with Bitcoin. They know that this can be done with Ethereum, but they don't realize that it can be done with Bitcoin. So this is the technology that we have enabled. And then it launched January of last year, actually less than a year. The launch was on January 14th last year. And it has just exploded. Like I think there's so much developer interest, community interest. There are Bitcoin NFTs now. I think there are 7, 8 different marketplaces for NFTs that came up. And one interesting thing I started noticing was like the Bitcoin community definitely has a culture, like just like, the Ethereum community has a culture and so on. But for the Bitcoin community, there was no way to express that culture. So once we started seeing Bitcoin NFTs through Stacks, we started seeing like, citadels as NFTs, like Bitcoin pizza as NFTs, like faces of Satoshi as an NFT. And that was like such a, almost like a breakthrough, that suddenly these Bitcoiners had a way to express themselves and form communities, because that's what a lot of Web3 is about. Like, it's people connecting with other people directly, and NFTs have a huge like community element, and the Bitcoin community was lacking the tools. Like, it is much more exciting to be part of a community that is exploring the frontier together in a way, right? Like, oh, here's a new idea that I'm excited about. This developer is building this thing on top, right? Or here's a new NFT collection that came out, and they're having like all these really energetic conversations, which was completely lacking in the broader Bitcoin ecosystem before. So I think that has been a very, very positive change for me. Like, I consider myself somewhat of an OG Bitcoiner, and even I'm excited that now there are fellow people like us, right? And they're only becoming bigger. Like, I have this little habit of basically saying good morning on Twitter every morning. And over time, the amount of people who have like Bitcoin NFTs as their profile picture, or they have a .btc in their Twitter handle, right? Because it's a .btc is a domain name, like .eth. It's just growing. Like, it's like, it was used to be 100 people. Now it's like 200, 300, 500 people who are just like excited about this direction that we are going in. And I think I feel the power of the community here.